Okay. So I'm assuming you guys can still see the screen, my screen, right? So when you go to this document, these are links and these will take you to the parts of the menu, the parts of the document that cover it. That's where we were, and there'll probably be more in there later. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Before I do this, guys, I wanted to talk about the PBLs. Okay. And I'm sorry, I really want to do this first. So right here is PBL number 2 submissions. And everybody did a great job on the contracts. Okay, so you might recognize this document. This was our PBL gallery. And I realized that I never put the shout outs and the feedback in this document like I was supposed to, and I never went over it. And I'm so sorry, or maybe I did and I forgot. But this, again, this is linked right here on the lesson plan. Oops. So there's shout outs. You guys can read your shout outs and you guys can read your shout outs and then your feedback. Now, don't take the feedback personally, okay? When people give you feedback, they're wanting you to get better and they're not attacking you. And so I know feedback is really hard to hear sometimes, but you know, we need feedback to get better. And remember how we started off our course, we talked about improving your human capital. Well, you know, being able to speak and give presentations is a great thing that you can do better than a robot. And so it helps you keep a job. So the next slide is the contract PBLs, and here's one person's. And you'll see it's just a really basic subtitle and then just the facts. This one's handwritten, and I'd say this was very complete. Okay. And she tried to use some legalese too, which was really cool. And then this one looks like it came off of a template. And I'm going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this next. Just a basic one, right? And then I liked in these, it's this one or another one, they put in collateral. This says, look at number 7. This loan is secured by collateral. The borrower agrees that until the loan together with interest is paid in full, the loan will be secured by a 2012 white Suburban. So we even put in collateral into it. And I love keeping this open so that creativity can come out. Okay. And you can take possession of the collateral before the loan. That's perfectly fine. You can, again, you know, loans are just part of the contract. Like you're just following the contract. It's not like all loans have to follow a set thing. You know, you can do simple interest or compound interest, or you can do, you know, you can set it up however you want. So most of the time the collateral is designated, but you don't give up the collateral in advance. You agree to give up the collateral as part of the contract. And this person kept it short and sweet. And this person also did this math right here where they worked it out. And I've already changed next year's PBL instructions to handle this. And that this was like, how do you calculate the interest owed as you pay down the loan? In other words, when you make a payment, it changes the calculation for interest. And I didn't want to get into that for this one because I just wanted to put in a PBL with the interest calculations. And so it'd be just that simple P equals IRT. Or if you want to do compound, you can do compound. But since people were doing this, this is called an amortization schedule. Amortization. And hold on, it's already trying to amortization. There we go. So when you amortize a loan, you're calculating the interest owed based on the time where the principal is at in the loan. So as you make your first payment, then the interest calculation changes because you owe less money, right? And this person did the same thing right here. And let me show you, maybe I can show you, let's see, PBL, not foundations. This is algebra 2, financial math. PBL number 2, write a contract. Let's see if I put it in here now. It might not have updated, but there you go, right there. So again, I'll tell you how I'm going to grade it in a second, but this would be like, the big thing is on a mortgage. A mortgage is amortized. Not all loans are amortized though. So it's a $10,000 loan from our aunt, and we're going to say we're going to pay it back in 2 years, so 24 months. Interest rate of 2.5%, 2.5, and we're going to wait. Loan date. We're going to wait. First payment date. First payment date. We're going to change the first payment date to be the next year. Okay. Just like in the thing, in the project, but doesn't have to be. Okay. All right. And compounding, we're going to put simple interest, and we're going to put normal method. You'll see there's a bunch of different ways you can amortize it. And points, when it talks about points, this is for mortgage. Some states have points attached to their mortgage for tax implications and other implications, but mainly taxes. And Kentucky does not do that. So you don't have to worry about points in Kentucky. So you'll see like, okay, this is year 1, payment 1, I think. And you'll see we start at 10,000, and that, this one goes down. So the balance goes down to 0. And this is how much goes to principal. So remember, principal is the $10,000 loaned, but you're not paying back $10,000. You're paying back $10,000 plus the interest. And so that's where it's going to be calculated out. But you'll see it's the same payments. You guys put in your contract, you're going to pay X amount every month for 24 months, and you guys made that calculation. So you'll see the payments stay the same, but your interest changes every month. Like, so, at this point, year 2, payment 17, we're at $7.30 goes to interest, and $420.45 goes to principal. Then $6.19 goes to interest, and $421.56 goes to principal. And it keeps getting, less and less goes to interest, and more goes to principal. And this brings up a really good point. When you first start paying a loan, out of the $427, 20 of it is going to interest. Whereas at the bottom of the loan, at the end of the loan, very little is going to interest. And so, that's where also, like, it's hard to pay back loan. Like, if you just pay back a little bit of the loan, most of it is going to interest. So you're not actually paying down the principal. And for mortgages, because it's so much money and it's so long, because it's so long of it, there's so many payments. The first few years you're paying off your mortgage for a house, the majority of your payments goes to interest. It doesn't go to principal. And so the first few years of your house, you have very little equity, which means you have very little saved up money in that house. Okay, so I wanted to show you that, but not harp on it too much because it really wasn't part of the assignment. But what I was doing when I was grading your these contracts was I was asking myself, like, is there enough information to where it would hold up in court? So if you didn't pay back your aunt, or your aunt got unhappy with you and she sued you and she took you to court for recourse, would this hold up? Like, would the judge be able to determine what should happen? And everybody did a great job, and everybody's grades reflected you guys did a great job. So there's a lot of different ways contracts can look. They can be more informal, they can be more formal, they can have more, you know, legalese language, they can have less legalese language. But you guys did a great job. So I just want to give you that feedback. If you want to look here and give feedback, you can use this box again to give feedback. That's up to you guys. I'm not going to assign it like I did for this one, but we will probably do this box again for you know, we're going to do more presentations in the future. Okay. All right. Any questions on the contracts PBL? Any feedback from the contracts PBL? You guys good with that? All right. Again, you guys did a great job. And I was really happy with what you guys came up with. There was a lot of creativity. So, okay, now we're into budgeting. Okay, so I know, guys, sorry. Let's see, looks like I have two of these tabs open. I'm gonna close this and keep this. Okay, so, nope. Okay, what is a budget? All right, I think this is a great place to start. And you guys are just gonna hear me talk for a little bit. A budget is a way of coping with scarcity. You don't have unlimited money to live your life. And you don't have a, I know, right? Mr. Abshire started giggling. So what it really comes down to is you have a scarcity of resources and you're trying to most efficiently allocate your resources. Okay, that's why you need a budget, because you can run out of money either at the end of the month or in the middle of the week. And you need to find some way to keep yourself from running out of money. A prioritization, it's a prioritization and a display of values and choices. What is important to you is what you will spend your money on. If having a big house is really important to you, you will spend your money on a big house. And if having a brand new Mustang with that turbocharged engine is important to you, you will spend your money on that brand new Mustang. If you'd rather have a dog and, you know, pay for the vaccines and the registration and the food and take time to walk the dog, then that's reflected in the budget. You know, you can't, you know, if you are working to try to make rent, you know, you might have to make a choice. Like, are you going to spend your money on the dog or are you going to spend money on eating out? You know, you can't do both necessarily if you have limited funds. It's a way to plan for the future. A budget can help you achieve future goals. So you say like, okay, I want to save for that new Mustang. Okay, it's a goal of mine to save for the Mustang. What do I need to change so I can save? That's what a budget helps you do. It's an evaluation tool. You don't just think about a budget as going forward, you also use a budget to look backwards. You look backwards when you make budgets and you say, where did my spending go? What did I do that was good? What did I do that I need to do better? Okay, it's an evaluation of how you have lived your life and how you have you know, managed your finances and managed your risk. Because, you know, remember, like a lot of your I haven't really talked about it yet, but you know, when you make a decision to buy a car, for example, you have a new asset, but you also have the risk of having to pay to fix the asset if it breaks. Okay, so you bought a car, that's great, you might have paid it off, but you have the risk of having to pay for a new tire if your tire pops. Okay, if you might have a house and you buy this house because you've budgeted and you saved, and that's amazing, but then you have the risk of a tree falling and smashing your roof, or your water heater breaking, or your pipe freezing. And so you need to allocate money appropriately to manage your risk. Same thing like, you know, when you decide where to rent, you can rent a cheaper apartment on this side of town, or you can rent a more expensive apartment on that side of town. You're making a calculated risk over your future cash inflows if you can handle the rent. Okay. Um, and we're really going to talk about rent risk more in the insurance unit. But a budget, the same way you evaluate your values and choices, it also has to do with the risks that you intake, okay? If you guys agree or disagree with anything, feel free to make this a conversation in the chat. I think you guys can add a lot of great comments. I know you guys are very smart, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, yes, no, different or otherwise, on anything I'm saying, okay? You guys can also help drive the conversation too. It's a way to maximize, budgets are a way to maximize efficiency. You know, you might discover that you're paying too much money at the Starbucks as you drive to school or as you drive to work. And you might say like, hey, you know, I might be more efficient if I bought my coffee from Kroger and, you know, save that money or maybe save the time. Okay, so a budget is a way of doing all these things. It copes with a lack of resources. It helps you set goals to achieve. It helps you evaluate what you've done in the past. It makes you more efficient in how you allocate your resources. Okay, it helps manage your risk. And that's why a budget is so important, and everybody in every family should have a budget. And that's the first thing that these people that make money just telling you how to live your life do, is they say you have to make a budget for yourself. And that's why I made it its own unit. Okay, budgets can change. Okay, it's not like you have a budget and that's it. It's set in stone. No, you make a budget and then your life changes, your situation changes, your pay changes, your expenses change. Okay, budgets can change. Just because you make a budget doesn't mean you can't be flexible with it. All right, a budget can say a lot about you and what's important about you. I made the comment in the last slide about your values and choices. Like I said, you know, if it's really important for you to take that vacation, then that's allocated in your budget. A lady I worked with, she put $100, she and her boyfriend put $100 in an envelope every single, I think it was 2 weeks. It was a week or 2 weeks. And that was every, like they could not do anything for the month, for the week or whatever it was before they put that $100 in there. It was probably every month. And then after, at the end of the year, they took that envelope and they went out and took a vacation with it, and that was their spending money for their vacation. That shows what was important before anything else got paid, before they spent money on eating out or buying new clothes. That money went into that envelope so they can do that vacation together, and that's what was important to them. And a budget should make you examine your beliefs. It should make you think about, you know, what is really important to you. Okay. Too often times we get into a routine in life and we do things the same every day, and we go to the same places and we meet the same people, and you know, that's like, or we buy this food from the store. When we buy this food from the store because our parents bought the food, or we, you know, we get this service done because our parents had it done. And so we're just following along with what's been passed down to us. And when you write it down and you look at it and you reflect it, you might ask yourself, why is it that I buy this service? Or why is it that I buy this food? You know, should I do something different? Could I do something different? Do I want to do something different? Okay. With scarcity, you have not only limited money, but you have limited time. And so when you make a budget, you also need to consider that you don't have unlimited time to do everything yourself. You might have to decide, are you gonna fix your car yourself, or are you gonna pay someone else to fix your car when it breaks down? And you might be able to fix your car technically, and financially it's a better choice, but you might not have the time to fix your car. Okay. And same thing with you say like, I'm gonna, um you might pay for a gym membership, but if you don't make time to go to the gym, then that's a scarcity. Like, you have to make a choice. Um, you're not just budgeting your money in life. In a bigger picture, you're also budgeting your time. You're budgeting your brain capacity. You can't learn French and calculus and chemistry and business finance all in the same year. Like, there's only limited brain capacity that you have. So, taking care of someone else. A lot of us want to be caretakers, and a lot of us want to help other people through their problems because we're nice. And you need to make sure that you're budgeting time in your day for yourself, and you're not budgeting away all of your mental energy into caring for other people. You need to put on your own oxygen mask before you put it on other people. Okay. You have limited resources. Everything in life is about scarcity. And this is such a weird concept for us living in 21st century America up until the pandemic, because everything was always abundant and there was always so much money and so much food and there was so much stuff, and we bought our products cheap from China. Okay. But it is a scarcity of resources that makes us budget and makes us have to live better and within our means. Um, I'm gonna move ahead a little bit. Okay. Again, let me say it one more time. Budgeting is not only about setting in place everything for the future, it's also a tool for reflection where you look back and you say, what the hell happened to my year? Okay. So one of my favorite things my credit card does is, and I know my wife's does it, a whole bunch of people's credit cards do it, a whole bunch of credit cards do it. They come out with this like annual report that you can get online. So I can go and find 2020 spending in a nutshell. Okay. And it breaks out how much money of my credit card went to food, how much money of my credit card spending went to gas, how much money of my credit card spending went to shopping, how much went to medical. And that can be very revealing. I might not understand just how much money I put into McDonald's, and oh my God, like I could have had that money to invest. Or how much money went into health. Like, when I select my health insurance and I have to select my high deductible plan or my medium deductible plan or my low deductible plan, I want to know how much money I spend in medical costs. Well, I don't keep a running tally in my head when I pay my medical bills, because that's difficult and hard, and I am busy and I have limited time and limited mental capacity. So every year I go back and I go through and I look at, what did I spend my money on? How much money did my car really cost? Because, I might not understand, oil changes and new windshield wipers. And then that time my alternator broke, and oh yeah, I had that flat tire. And all of a sudden I might realize that my car is the reason why I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Okay. And when you just pay it and then go to work the next day, you're not thinking about it. You don't understand where the money comes from. And so when you do a budget, you can sit down and you can look backwards, and that helps you evaluate and it helps you reflect on what you're putting in and what you're getting out of your life. Okay. There's 3 ways that you can make a budget. Okay. The first thing you can do is you can look backwards at what you spent in the past. And usually what you spend in the past is what you're going to spend in the future, and you can make small changes. Okay. So the first way to do it is to go back and look and say, how much money did I spend on my car last year? Okay. How much money did I spend on my health insurance last year? Okay. How much money did I spend eating out last year? Okay. How much? And then use that as a template for what you want to do in the following year. And so you'll take your past figures and you'll try to use that to project out and to anticipate what's going to happen in the next year and use the past as a template. Now, not every year is the same. And so when you look at the past, just because you spent that money in 2019 does not mean that you're going to spend that same money in 2020. So it's not perfect, but nothing is perfect. You're trying to do your best. Okay. You can, the second way you can do it is you can start with the expenses. How much is your rent? How much is your food? How much is your gas? How much is your phone bill? How much is your health insurance? Start with your expenses and then figure out how much money you need to make. Okay. And that's a very valid way to do it. You know you're going to have to spend money on rent. You know you're going to have to spend money on your cell phone bill. You know you're going to have to spend X amount on your education. Okay. Start with the expenses and then go from there. And when you do that, you're starting with fixed expenses. We're going to get into that later. So fixed expenses are things you can't control, right? If you have a cell phone, you can't control your cell phone bill. It doesn't matter if you use your cell phone a lot or a little. You have to spend, if your contract is $50 a month, you're going to spend $50 a month. Your rent is fixed. It doesn't matter if you're spending every night in your house or you're going to sleep over with your friends half the time or you're going back to mommy's house. Okay. You have to pay for your rent no matter what. It's fixed. You can't decrease it in the short term. Okay. Other expenses are not fixed and you can change, like gas. Okay. You can combine your trips and save money on gas, or you can carpool, or if you're doing classes at home through BVLA, you're not spending money on gas, and therefore you can reduce those expenses. Eating out, you can choose not to eat out at McDonald's 4 days a week. Like, you can reduce it and you can save money on that. It's not fixed, it's variable costs, or you say, flexible spending. So there's two categories when you go with this expenses route. You always start with the fixed expenses first, things you can't control, and then you go to the variable expenses, things that you can control, like the eating out and the food and the clothes shopping and the entertainment, how many times you go to the movies. Okay, because when you start with expenses, you're going to have to pay the fix, and you can then change or work around with the variable expenses. The third way you can do it is you can start with the money you do make and then allocate expenses based on that. So you've got your full-time job next year, working 40 hours a week, maybe you get a little bit of overtime pay, and you know how much money you're going to have. And from there, you can figure out, how much money can I spend on my rent? How much money can I spend on my food? How many times can I afford to go out to the movies? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so there's three ways that you can make a budget. I don't think I can tell you that one is better than the other. Obviously, they all have some limitations and they all have some positives. You might use a combination of all three. Okay. Your project-based learning by percentages is a budgeting way it's a way of starting with the expenses, because you start with a percentage that you should spend on your expenses and you go from there. Okay. Um, the spending activity, one of the budgeting assignments, is looking at your expenses and excuse me, comparing your expenses to your income. Oh boy, excuse me. Okay, here's what the average American is spending their money on. Notice what is the biggest category, and this always catches young people by surprise. And it's different for you guys than it was for me, and it's very different for you guys compared to my parents. So I think your parents are probably a little younger than my parents, but what is the biggest expenditure and what should you always start with first? It's housing. Housing is what eats up so much of our money. There's Mr. Abshire giggling again. Okay. Um, Rent, mortgage, rent a house, whatever you do, housing is kind of this big thing. And my recommendation, this is not on the test, but my recommendation is to do everything you can to control your housing expenses while you're young. Get a roommate. Live with mom and dad one more year. Okay, get a smaller apartment, a cheaper apartment, and suck it out a little bit where you can save a little bit of money. Remember, we talked about compound interest. You need savings and time. So if you can save money on housing early, you can invest it and you can make your money work for you. Okay. Housing is always the big thing and it's fixed. Once you sign a lease, you have a lease. Once you buy a house, you have a mortgage. Okay, it is one of these things that takes long-term planning and preparation in order to prepare for, where it's not eating up such a huge percentage of your income. Transportation is the next big one. That makes sense because you have to have some way to get to work. Food, personal insurance, pensions, healthcare, entertainment, all other expenses. Cash contributions, I imagine, is talking about savings. Okay, so putting cash towards savings, apparel services, education, personal care, product services. Does anybody is anybody have an expense that maybe is not on here or that is you don't know where it would go? Anybody have an expense that they can think of that maybe is not thought of right here? Okay, again, this is the average American. So look at how much the average American is spending. So 20 plus 10 is 30 plus 14, 15 is 45, 50,000, 53,000, 55,000, 56, 7, 59, and 61,000. So it's about, so the average American household, okay, spent, oh, look, it's already total right there. They spent about $61,000. Okay, now you're not going to make $61,000 right away. So don't compare yourself to the average American. In fact, my recommendation is don't compare yourself to anybody. Okay. It might be helpful to see what you do compared to everybody else. Might be helpful to see what everybody else does so you know, get some good ideas. But don't think that you need to spend $20,000 a year on housing. Okay. $20,000 a year, we used to spend that on our old mortgage. Our old mortgage was $1,400 a month. Now it's $1,000 a month. And plus, when we first started getting our mortgage, we had what's called PMI or personal mortgage insurance, which is this extra expense, which is crazy. So yeah, I mean, we spent about 20,000, and transportation, that includes insurance on your cars. You get that nice car and you got it and it's paid off, but then you have to pay insurance on it. Okay, so the leftover money you didn't spend, does that go into the next budget or do you use it freely? Okay, so for me personally, the money that I don't spend gets put into a savings vehicle that accrues compound interest so that I can be rich when I'm old. Okay. Now you might it might be important to you to take that vacation with that leftover money. It might be worth it to say like, oh, I got leftover money. I guess I can go out to the movies again. But for me, I am super focused, probably too much so, on being able to retire comfortably. And so when I do my budget, I budget uh to you know to save. That's my goal. Um And this reminds me, thank you, Elisa. There was something I meant to put on here. I thought I put it on here, but that's a concept that a lot of these financial gurus do, and that's they say pay yourself first. Like in your budget, the very first thing you should do is to pay yourself. So what does that mean? That means that before you spend money on rent and food and transportation, and before you allocate money to that, you need to put money into your savings because you need your savings to grow where you can develop this nest egg, wealth. You can build wealth for yourself. And that's called, again, pay yourself first. Okay. I totally believe in that. Like to me, I don't treat myself to a nicer car before I paid myself first. I don't treat myself to nice meals until I paid myself first. I make sure that I save money so I can retire every single paycheck or pay period or month or whatever, however I do it. Okay. Can you have a budget that goes into debt? Yes. Yes. You might have a year where yeah, I gotta buy a car this year and I'm not gonna have to buy a car next year. And I have like some expenses for education this year that I'm not going to have in the future. And, or maybe, I got my apartment and now I have to buy a washer and dryer. Okay. So you might have a budget that doesn't balance, and that is fine because you have a yearly budget, but then you have a long-term plan also. And so maybe this year you spend $1,000 on a washer dryer. Maybe this year you spend some money on your education, and at the end of the year, your balance sheet is negative and you've spent more than you've made. And that is fine as long as it's an investment and it will work out in the long run. Okay, so your budget does not have to balance always. Budgets are only used for money. We talked about you have to budget your time and your mental energy and all that other stuff too. Sometimes you cannot afford not to spend money on stuff. This is my daughter. Actually, she didn't do this, but there's people I know who say, I don't have a lot of money this month, so I'm going to eat ramen noodles 4 times a week. Or, I'm really tight on cash, so I'm going to skip an oil change in my car or some kind of maintenance thing. Or, if I just reduce how much money I put into maintaining my house, then I can save money for this thing. Okay, there's some things that you can't afford not to do. If you eat ramen noodles to save money and you're doing this time and time and time again, you will get sick and you will have a huge, not only loss of income from being sick where you can't work, but you'll have a huge medical expense. Okay. Or, if you defer maintenance on your car or your house, you will pay for that in the long run. And so when you are doing this budget, don't try to cut corners in ways that are unhealthy, and do think about the long-term consequences of what you're doing. Okay, no matter what you gain or lose monetarily, there is nothing more important than your health. If you have your health, you can always work to make money. But if you lose your health, you cannot work. And so the first consideration you should have in every decision of what your life should be your health and your well-being. You only get 2 eyeballs. Take care of them. Don't look at the sun. Wear safety goggles. You only get 1 back. Don't do the milk crate challenge for Instagram views. Okay? I could fix my house myself. and then I'm not going to have to pay for this big repair bill. But you need to get someone to hold the ladder for you, because a ladder fall is a serious thing. And it's like one of the #1 most common accidents. Okay. Um, and, brakes and tires on a car. Doesn't matter how good your car is. It doesn't mean anything if your tires are awful. And it doesn't mean anything if your brakes don't work. So you cannot save money by skimping on good tires and good brakes. You can't. Okay. I'm hoping that some of this good advice is reaching you guys today. I don't know what just happened. All right. We're going to do the rest of these things later. We're going to talk about giving later too. Okay. The assignments. There's a few assignments with this. The bean game activity. I like the bean game activity, but it's set up kind of silly for the online. It should be better. It's definitely better in person, but the bean game activity looks like this. Okay, and there's an example here already done for you, and I don't want you to keep the example. I want you to either find this group right here or do something. But this is trying to teach the concept of scarcity. Okay, you have 20 beans, you'll have a limited number of money, and you can only do so much. You can't always get the best housing and insurance and transportation and clothing and food, because you'll run out of beans. So you have 20, you're going to use a capital O. You're going to delete all the capital O's in the example, or go to a different Google sheet, and you're going to place 20 beans on the category. For housing, you get to choose. If you live with a family, sharing the cost of utilities, it only costs you 2 beans. If you share an apartment with a house or roommate, it costs you 3. If you rent your own place, it costs 4. That's also one of the biggest expenses, right? Housing is one of the biggest expenses. So you're gonna pick how to spend 20. Spend all 20. Okay, don't turn this in with only 18, and don't turn in the same as the example. Take some time to think about it. This is a great exercise for when you do have to go out and make a decision, because one day you're going to have to make a decision. You need to move out of your parents' place. Are you going to rent? Are you going to rent a house? Are you going to rent an apartment? Are you going to get a roommate? Are you going to live on the nice side of town or the other side of town? Are you going to get a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom? Are you going to get a place with a washer dryer hookup, or no place with a washer dryer, or a place without one? There's a lot of decisions. It's very hard to think about these things on the spot. It's very hard to think about these things with time constraints. Shopping for an apartment or a house is mentally exhausting. So take some time now to think about it here, where you give your brain a chance to prepare for dealing with the scarcity. And when you get a chance, like what my daughters did not learn, when you get a chance to, make your choice about where to live, understand that there is scarcity. One of my daughters is foster kid. That's not, I mean, we had her for a year, but she got the most expensive cell phone plan. And then she bought the more expensive car. And then pretty soon, my wife is giving her money to make ends meet on common bills. Pretty soon she's, struggling financially, and she's stressed out about that, not able to focus on her schoolwork. Okay. And then she's trying to find some relief in a relationship. Okay. So, understand that there is scarcity. Not everything will come to you for free. If you have extremely wealthy parents and it does come to you for free, I'm happy for you. Said that the leftover money goes in the savings account. Wouldn't the majority of your retirement money still be used for the unchangeable variables? So what's the difference between then and now? I don't know. What's the stupid question? That's not a stupid question. First of all, when you retire, you need to understand that your income is not going to be the same because you're not working. So when I retire, I will not collect my paycheck. Okay. And so that's where I need to replace my income with my savings. Okay, now I'll get a little bit of Social Security maybe, or a little bit of pension maybe. Everybody's retirement's going to look a little different. But your income changes and your expenses change, because by the time I'm ready to retire, maybe my house is paid off. And maybe instead of spending $20,000 a year in housing, I'm spending $6,000 a year to maintain my house and taxes. Okay, expenses don't go away entirely. When I retire, I'm not going to have to pay to commute to work, like my gas and my mileage on my car, my tires, my brakes. So my expenses change for transportation. By the time I'm ready to retire, my kids will be out of my house and I won't have to pay for school activities and daycare and clothes, and I won't have to pay for them. Okay. Maybe my health insurance costs will go up. So I need to plan to pay more to take care of my aging body. Okay. You know, there are other expenses that do go down. So right now, you know, I have a lot of expenses because I have a lot going on with my family. I'm trying to work a lot and save so that when I get older, I don't have to work a lot. Okay. Now my savings rate will go way up once my kids are out. Like if like right now, Lockton's in daycare. And so daycare for me is $13,000 a year. So that is a budgeted item. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. So that's the bean game. And then there's a different one. And I know we're going over. I'm going to get you on here in just a second. I'm so sorry. Next one is the budget activity. Okay. So for this one, first of all, you can use this year's budget. You can make up a budget in the future, or you can use your family budget. I don't care. Okay. What I want you to be able to do is think about where your income comes from, add it all up. You need a total right here in this box. And then your expenses are broken up between 2A, B, and C, and they're out of order, but 2C is periodic expenses. You budget monthly because you're paid monthly, but your expenses are not monthly because maybe you spend money extra in December for Christmas. So you have December expenses. Maybe you spend money in June for vacation. Take that vacation, you spend some money on yourself. Maybe you spend some money in February for your sweetheart. Maybe you spend money in August to go back to school shopping. Okay, expenses are month to month mostly, but sometimes they're not. And you're gonna figure out your periodic expenses January through December, and then you're gonna take that subtotal, sum them all up, and divide it by 12, and that's gonna be right here, and that goes into periodic expenses right here. Okay, we talked about fixed expenses, controllable expenses. Add them up. This gives you the subtotal. This gives you the subtotal. That goes right here. And then take your total monthly net income and subtract your total expenses, and that's your balance. It does not have to be zero, but this minus this must be this. And this must be all of these added together. That's how it's graded. All right, any questions on the spending plan? It is a exercise of how you can think about doing your budget in the future. And I'm going to talk about this as the last one. For this, there is an idea of budgeting that you should only spend a certain percentage of your money on housing. You should only spend a certain percentage of your money on transportation. You should only spend a certain percentage of your money on things like clothes, okay? And it's pretty good advice. So Dave Ramsey is a dude, and he says, I like these percentages. And moneybliss.org says, I like these percentages. And nobody's right and wrong. You have to figure out what's best for you. But I want you to do the research, see what they say, and then copy it down here. Okay. And then give your reflection. Part 2 is interview. You're going to interview a parent or friend about their budget. I would recommend not interviewing your parents. I would recommend interviewing someone else. Don't tell me who they are. Don't criticize their budgeting decisions. Don't be impolite about it. Everybody's personal financial decisions are their own and they have to live with them. Don't be rude. Say, may I ask you a few questions, please? How about this? How about this? What do you think about that? Don't tell them, hey, do it. Like, I mean, you're not here to give them advice. If they want your advice, fine. But don't be rude about it. Don't call them out if they are in massive debt or if they are spending way too much money on eating out. Don't call them out on it. Okay. Don't tell me, you don't have to say, this is so and so, he lives at this address. It could be anonymous. It probably should be anonymous. Okay. I don't want to know the personal information of so and so. I read it and I want to know like what they think, but I don't know. I don't want to connect that to who it is. Does that make sense? And then we're going to talk about part 3 later, but it's a pretty good project. Okay. All right. Any questions? Was today helpful? Did you hear something new at least? All right. I preached at you guys a lot and I appreciate you guys listening. I hope that you find these activities worthwhile so you can, make, some changes to your thinking or however you say it. And I will wish you guys a great day. Please be nice to everybody else and take care of yourselves and stay up to date and turn everything in. Next week, you are off.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.